it got people.
Yeah.
Do you know why it got people?
Mostly no. Ideas that I have would be, it's not cynical in tone. It approaches subjects that people are actually interested in, like religion, defined very broadly. I think its approach struck a nerve because it struck a chord because it was fresh. The plot, just animals. People are like, I like wild animals. I think it just stood out as a different kind of novel without being weird. I mean, there are a lot of novels that are very strange, really bizarre characters or bizarre occurrences. This stood out as a different kind of plot, different kind of approach, without falling into the zany or the weird. So maybe that, and also maybe just the zeitgeist. This, a questioning about transcendence, using the metaphor of animals in a shipwreck, just came at the right time. If it came out nowadays, today, people might say, oh, that's such a clear attempt to heal the wounds of 9/11, perhaps. This boy practiced through religion. I mean, the fact is, when I started this, I thought it was deeply unfashionable. Here I am talking about religion, the main character taking it seriously. I'm taking on zoos which no one likes. It's unfashionable, in fact, in some ways objectionable. Who's going to want to read this? So yeah, I was as surprised as anyone else that it did so well.
At first, the idea of seeing pie and bothered me because I had a fixed vision, and also I had a fixed vision of what everything looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay.
Well, first of all, you don't see pie, and that was the key thing that made it work, I think. And that's one of the things that sold us on Torianats, on Tomislav Torianats, was precisely the fact that we never see pie, that the reader becomes pie, which suits perfectly the narrative voice of the novel. It's an I voice. I never describe pie because it was irrelevant. And in fact, I'm always annoyed when people are described, and I say, first of all, it's so hard to describe a face with words. So it always leads to exaggeration. He had fleshy lips, so you see these enormous sort of lips. A long nose, you see an anteater. And I don't see what does it matter what the character looks like. Pie is never described because it's irrelevant. And I like that Tomislav took on that same perspective. Because precisely, if pie were portrayed, first of all, it would reverse the narrative gaze. Instead of looking out, we'd be looking towards pie. And everyone would react to him with their aesthetic judgment, their personal one of whether, oh, he's taller, oh, he looks, younger, meaner, I don't like his nose. Stuff which is totally irrelevant. That's not what the book's about. The image does not contradict the text. And that's not, he goes from there and he does something else, just as I do with my little series of facts. I go somewhere else. But, it's all, like, for example, I just happen to have this one here. The tiger's expression is not exaggerated. It's not comic. It really is like a tiger looking out at someone when it's on a lifeboat, kind of curious, kind of worried. He was very attentive to detail, and I appreciated that. So no, I don't think, unlike in a movie, often in a movie, you have a clear sense of a book, and the movie, not only because it gels aesthetically how you feel the character should look, but also movies can never totally capture the narrative, the plot of a story, because it's too long. So they have to make choices, and those choices will jar with readers' expectations. Well, these illustrations don't jar with the narrative of the book. They follow along with it. And they're, like any great art, these are a starting point. You look at these illustrations and you dream away. Just as when you read a book, you read it and you dream away. You construct something. Whereas a movie, in a sense, replaces your imagination. During the course of a movie, the movie is your imagination. And afterwards, you can sort of say, well, I didn't like this, didn't like that. And often people, don't they always say, oh, I preferred the book? This is not the case where I think they'll say, oh, I didn't like I preferred the prose. I think they complement each other. It's like two instruments in an ensemble, I think.
Reading the book the second time, totally different experience from when I read it the first time. And I think if I go back in another few years, something else will hit me in a completely different way too. I think that's what works so well about that book. There's so much there.
Yeah, there's a lot in it. There is a lot in it.
Did you know there was that much in it when you wrote it?
Well, yeah, I write slowly. I'm amazed at people who, and there are good writers who write in paragraphs. Alexander McCall Smith, just entire paragraphs come out, it flows. I don't have that capacity. I work literally sentence by sentence and often word by word. So I'm constantly rewriting. So the essay right now, I'm constantly going over whenever I write, I start. Usually I go back over what I wrote the day before and mull it over and change things. And now the essay, it's about 180 pages. It's a fairly small format. I'm constantly going all of it. Is this right? Do I like this? And things that for some reason bother me, but I don't know how to solve it. After reading it the 15th time, finally an idea will come and I'll change it. So I'm endlessly, tinkering with single words. And then in terms of the content too, this is only the next one, the Holocaust one. It's only the 4th book, and it'll come out when I'm 45. So 4 books, and I'll be 45. And I've been writing full time since I was 27, with no other professional distractions. I don't have much to say, so I say it carefully, and I do research, and I try to make links, and so there is a lot in here. There's a lot that is probably unfamiliar to most people, in the sense that most people about religion, in our very secular society, most people know about religion just enough to dismiss it. So they know the bad aspects of religion. So anything that shows something else is probably new to them. Most people like wild animals and don't know that much about it. And not too many people are sailors. So I'm also exploring territory that is unfamiliar to a lot of people. And so combining all three, I think, just made for a very interesting experience. But it's also true, it is quite layered. There are things hinted in part 1 that are confirmed in part 3 or in part 2. Yeah, it's quite a layered work.
The book is Life of Pi, the illustrated edition. I've been speaking with the author Yann Martel, and the illustrated Life of Pi, published by Knopf Canada.